If you can't take the heat, run.
In 2001, a sequel to Godzilla 2000 was approved of by Toho, and it was going to be produced in America, believe it or not. Now look, this movie was going after something pretty impressive to say the least. Bruce Campbell, Christopher Lee, Leonard Nimoy, and even Jamie Lee Curtis were all actors that the filmmakers had in mind to appear in this movie, which would have been directed by Joe Dante, by the way, after bringing us massively fun films like The Howling, Small Soldiers, and Gremlins. Unfortunately, even though Toho themselves approved the script, plans fell through, and what could have been a super memorable movie never got off the ground. This is the story about the unmade sequel to Godzilla 2000, and what happened to the project that was ultimately canceled due to another film stealing its thunder. What's going on, guys? Hope you're all doing well. Now, when it comes to today's subject, I was actually shocked to find out just how insane this whole thing sounded. Godzilla Reborn is an unmade script with its first draft dated for February 5th of 2001. The plot involved a giant monster storming through the Hawaiian Islands after the events of the last movie. A conference filled with scientists was being held in Honolulu during Godzilla's attack, and believe it or not, they actually handle that whole problem relatively well. The military, no joke, kills Godzilla halfway through the movie, only to find out that there's a giant lava bat monster living in a volcano that's about to cause way more damage. Realizing they screwed up big time, the humans end up cloning Godzilla in order to fight the new monster, which sounds like a seriously wild movie that leaned way more into the whole Mars Attacks kind of spoof territory with that premise. This script would get sent over to Toho, and believe it or not, they really liked it. There was just one problem. Toho took issue with the American filmmakers killing off Godzilla and asked for them to change that one detail before they got the okay for production to begin. So instead of the military killing Godzilla, they ended up just knocking him out and putting him in a coma before reviving him to fight the giant bat monster, which wound up being named Meba in this unmade sequel. After they rewrote that little detail, Toho approved, and they were off to make the movie. The lead character was going to be an LA TV reporter on vacation, and she wants to do more serious journalism just when Godzilla stomps into town. There were other funny characters written, like a belligerent army general, a hotel owner, and a Bronx Jew who, quote, peppers his dialogue with Yiddish, and a Honolulu chief of police that drinks on duty because there's never any crime. Interestingly, there was even supposed to be a cameo by Raymond Burr, the actor from the 1956 American cut of the original Godzilla movie. He would have played a Godzilla expert named Raymond Burr. Am I reading that right? The movie was estimated to only cost the studio around $20 million, and after having rewritten the last movie for America, someone at Columbia asked Michael Schlesinger to write the sequel before moving on with further development. This particular project started off as a random joke, by the way, with Michael Schlesinger, the writer of the movie, and John Davison having a brief conversation one day that ended with, yeah, and if this company Sony is smart, they'll get you, me, and Joe Dante to do the next American one. And what started out as just a silly comment evolved into a full-on project after Michael called them both up and they agreed to make the movie. Kinda crazy how this all started, isn't it? Now, the writer, Michael Schlesinger, would comment on Godzilla Reborn by saying, I took many of the Godzilla archetypes and turned them inside out. The problem with most Godzilla films is that the human characters take themselves too seriously, and that's a large part of why the monster scenes seem funny by comparison. So I guess the idea was to at the very least make the whole thing consistently silly instead of going back and forth in tone for an American audience. Actor Shiro Miyasaka was supposed to return as the same character from Godzilla 2000, by the way, and there was even going to be some special effects created by some of Toho's talents with the man in a suit technique that was also used on Godzilla 2000, so this was going to be a legitimate sequel to the last movie. The film was written with a lot of major league star power to boost its credibility with fans of the genre. If Christopher Lee had been in this, it would have been pretty wild because he was simultaneously playing both Saruman the White and Count Dooku from The Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars prequels at this same time. And Jamie Lee Curtis was already majorly popular, and she was even more popular at the time with her return to the Halloween series after starring in H2O, which I really want to get around to talking about, by the way. Needless to say, this was probably going to be one of the most popular and well-recognized Godzilla movies ever made in America, had it have been filmed. I really think that all of what they're doing here sounds instantly iconic. It may not have been great, but it is a project that I think a lot of people would have liked to have seen. In an interview that Michael Schlesinger did with Sci-Fi Japan, the writer went on to comment further about how this whole thing came to be by saying, "The situation was analogous to Star Trek. A lot of people had problems with the first film, so Paramount said, okay fine, let's give them what they want. A cheap movie that looks like the TV show. And thus was born The Wrath of Khan, and the franchise was saved. I felt we could do the same thing with Godzilla, so I called John and Joe Dante and asked if they'd be interested in my pursuing this, and they both said absolutely." Funnily enough, I can remember asking my dad to take me to go see Godzilla 2000 back when it came out. I actually saw the Matthew Broderick movie from 1998 and Godzilla 2000, both in theaters when I was a kid, and Dad actually answered me pretty quickly when I told him I wanted to go see the new Godzilla movie. He was like, "Yeah, okay, sure, I'll take you to go see Godzilla 2000. Unfortunately, all the enthusiasm that my dad had to see Godzilla 2000 quickly disappeared once he realized he'd bought tickets to see a Japanese Godzilla movie with a guy in a suit. And I think a lot of people were fooled into thinking that movie was supposed to be a sequel to the American Godzilla movie from just a couple years ago that took inspiration from Independence Day and Jurassic Park. So I can see why Godzilla Reborn was written to be a giant-sized joke as a follow-up. The reason this movie never got made, by the way, is hilarious. A much more expensive film was about to come out, you all may have heard of, called Spider-Man. That kind of film would go on to have a budget of over $120 million. And by the time Michael Schlesinger finished writing the script, someone else was the head of production. Sid Ganis came on board as a producer, but he didn't even read the script. He apparently went on to say, quote, "I'm in the Spider-Man business. $20 million movies aren't on my radar." And Sony had already paid Toho $5 million for a sequel that the company just wound up writing off. Michael tried to shop the script around to other studios, but Toho now wanted a huge amount of money up front to continue working on it with a different studio, and he just didn't have the funds, so it, quote, died right there. Bruh. I find this whole thing fascinating. Not only did a movie like Godzilla Reborn get off the ground as a simple joke between filmmakers in Hollywood, but it ended up dying because it wasn't expensive enough to make. That's gotta be one of the silliest and most outlandishly stupid business decisions I think I've ever heard in that industry. Had a Godzilla movie been made with the monster fighting a giant lava bat in Hawaii, with Jamie Lee Curtis, Bruce Campbell, and Christopher Lee, alongside several others, actually been made with that kind of tone in the early 2000s, it would have been a slam dunk. After plans fell through, by the way, Joe Dante went on to make Looney Tunes Back in Action, which instead of my dad, it was now my turn to get fooled because I thought that was supposed to be a sequel to Space Jam.
Let's do some drills.
Well, at least I had Goldberg.
Bruh.
Anyways, guys, what do you all think? What are your thoughts on Godzilla Reborn, the movie that never came to be, but quite literally almost was the second Godzilla movie made in America? Whatever your own thoughts and opinions happen to be, I'd love to hear all about them in the comments down below. Let me tell you something, brother. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it, and if you'd like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you can be updated when I put out new videos. God bless you all. Christ is King. I hope you all enjoyed your time, and as always, take it easy.